All right. Welcome to a bit of a different uh, live feed than usual. We're not doing any builds today. Well, we are, but right now we're not doing a build. Uh, I'm Troy Knockhant. I own and run Quad Standard Labs. It's my company. It's what I started. Don't need to get into my background, but you may also know me as Chef PV. I think this is important because I want to make sure that where I'm coming from and my exact direction on this is understood. I've been flying and participating in this drone scape, if you would, for 5, 6, something like that, about 5 years or so. Starting with the bigger stuff, which at the time was the main DIY stuff, do it yourself. And we were building, large F450s, 650s, stuff like that, the Discoveries. And then we got into consumerism. That shifted gears, and FPV kind of also popped up around that time. And as that popped up, that took over the DIY portion of the Dronescape. I just decided to start calling it Dronescape. Um, with the latest round of announcements, which I say announcements because I think a lot of people have not been following these stories close enough over the years to understand how we got to today, which we'll get into maybe in another segment. But I have been in and around and seen a lot of the community pushback and the community outcries about what's currently going on. In doing so, I try to comment here or there and try to let people know, hey, you might want to go read up yourself. You may want to understand it deeper. I think people get tired of hearing that, but unfortunately, I do think that's the number one thing. We will get to that, but let's quickly. I really, my goal here was I've got 5 misconceptions, and these misconceptions, feel free to tell me I'm wrong. Feel free to argue against the idea that I think that people are seeing this the wrong way. But I believe this pretty wholeheartedly, that there's 5 major points that people are misconstruing and misconceiving and misunderstanding. So, the first one, this is in no way about our American freedoms or liberties. I say that and I kind of giggle or laugh or smile. Maybe I'm not trying to insult anyone. However, the idea that we should be able to build something randomly with just random parts and be able to just randomly put it in the air and go flying around in random places, to me, there's just lots of logical reasons that I don't care to sit on. That is not a freedom or a liberty. Just like building some crazy car without obeying rules and regulations and then putting it on the street. You can't build something in your garage and go drive it around if it doesn't meet certain criterias. Somebody will argue with me, well, if you get a permit. I'm just saying, on the basic level, this is not about freedom or liberties or justice for the Constitution. It's just not. Another thing, that's number one. Number two, this is not just about the FAA wanting some responsibilities to oversee us. This is not a money grab by the FAA to oversee drones and somehow turn that into a business. I can tell you right now that the FAA would much rather just say, we don't want anything to do with this. Y'all figure it out and integrate with this. As it's kind of what is going to happen, and I think we're going to get to. But they can't do that. Now, the FAA happens to be the closest thing we have to an oversight of aerial integration of robotics. Now, again, I wholeheartedly believe that if the FAA could wash their hands of the whole thing and say someone else figure this out, they would. So I believe it's a huge misconception that the FAA wants this duty. Money, number 3. Everybody thinks this is a money grab. The U.S. government needs more money. The government's just wanting our money so they can sell our data, whatever. Again, I truly just think that that is so far down on the list of needs and desires and necessities for the future of our world that it's not about money. If they wanted money, they just straight up tell us, give us money. Um, so that brings us to number four. This is probably the biggest one. This is the one that I see. The first three were just like, let's get these out of the way. These next two are the ones that I think spark so much conversation and so much emotion, it seems, within people, that it's difficult to make to not make. I'm sorry. It's difficult to engage people with the difference of opinion, if you would, on this part. Um, this is not about the risk that drones have played in society to today. Too often I'm seeing people arguing and asking for and saying they're not going to comment on the NPRMs until they actually see a risk assessment. The risks that are trying to be mitigated are actually unforeseen. And it's really weird, and it's the part that I wish I could just flip my fingers and let everybody understand is there's a very large gap of understanding of where technology is today, what's holding technology back from being implemented and applied, and how we can get there. The technology to do a lot of unmanned management. And I'll just say traffic to begin with. I love using unmanned traffic management. UTM is what it's called in the industry. The main reason is this is probably going to be where we cut our teeth with understanding how aerial robotics and all robotics kind of start really playing key roles in making our world better and like making it easier to navigate the city and more real-time updates and managing traffic flows in ways that only can be done from with bird's eye views that come from aerial platforms. In order to put cameras on every street corner and every corner and all over and big camera live views of all the traffic around, it would cost billions and billions and billions of dollars all over the planet. And that's all kinds of problems going wrong. Come forward to the technology we have today where we could send up a tethered platform off of a pole. It could go up, it could see for miles, it could make an assessment based off of its AI on board and then tell the computer, the traffic management flow system, how to start making people flow better around the city, redirecting people and such. So these are all things that are possible today, but we can't just go putting drones tethered to poles in the middle of the city because all kinds of other reasons, not just us with our little, toys and our hobby stuff. But this is just one reason why we can't take even a step forward without understanding and laying down the landscape and saying as society, as communities, as cities, whatever, we have to recognize that there is going to be implemented new technologies, and those technologies are going to require their own dedicated space in their own safe zones. And if that means that we can't go fly in a residential area or an urban area, then we can't. But, if we need to go out to the rurals, to the sticks and go fly, well, there's no, maybe there's not going to be as much regulation out there or an enforcement. But at the end of the day, as these technologies for unmanned traffic flow and unmanned traffic management and other types of things, like the other simplest thing that we could do today is your packages could easily be delivered by a ground-based rover that your UPS guy pulls up to the front of the neighborhood, loads up 5 of them, and they start going out and dropping off packages. Imagine what that would mean for how deliveries are streamlined and how much better somebody's work environment is, their quality of life, because they're no longer having to run all over the place. They're able to just load up these machines. So these are really simple, basic ways that these technologies are going to be applied and can be applied today, but without clearing the way and mitigating all risk, because to put these things in play in cities and make them part of everyday life, someone, and when I say someone, I mean a company, has to ensure either the airspace, the ground, where the operation area, and the technology itself, as well as the entire, the entire machine that is being implemented, the entire system being implemented to solve these problems. Like, these are things that have to be understood. The risk has to be weighed, it has to be mitigated, and it has to be insured. And I just think that these are things that, the average hobbyist or the average consumer are not thinking about when they think about how we're on the cusp of the technology breaking. We are right there at the technology can be deployed, but we as people are basically holding it back. Driving technology is a perfect example. We can't put cars driving themselves on the road in major, huge numbers yet because there's too much of the human factor. There's too many humans out there, A, not wanting to use the technology and probably going to do something silly or stupid, like, I don't know, like they do blocking, electrical charging outlets for Teslas because people just think that it's funny or cool to go block a charging bay. Stuff like that just shows that, like, the society is not ready for these types of changes yet. So, anyways, that was number 4. The misconception is this is not about drones have been dangerous to today, up to today's date. This is about the mitigation of the future of airspace, waterways, ground, everything that is soon going to be much more automated and have robots roaming around doing things, working for us, really. So let's get to the last one. All right. So I actually already kind of said this is not only about flying taxis, drone deliveries, and all that air robotics. It's not about just the aerial stuff. This is about an entire ecosystem of smart technologies that are about to really change the way that we look at the world, the way we operate in the world, and the way that we do work. It's just going to be really cool. I mean, our future is pretty darn awesome looking if we can get out of our own way and understand how to accept the technology into our lives and move forward and sure, make some changes. So those are, I know it was 4 really that I rolled the 5th one in. These are really some important things that I think each individual needs to consider. And if you feel like you need to do something, the question then becomes, what can you do? What is the right path towards shaping and helping be part of whatever the future is going to be and how the regulation is affecting that? This part of the conversation is me speaking about how I feel like this should be approached by each individual, and then as groups of people come together, they definitely should come together in the power of numbers. CBOs are popping up, really, community-based organizations, because different communities are finding that they have differences of opinions and different goals, and so they're creating their own groups to move forward and push for their own shaping of this. And I think that's great. I do think it's also it's going to get a little dangerous if we get too many of these things, these organizations that are almost competing at this point because they have various differences. So more so, I think it's important that less global, widespread community involvement comes together. I think that the best way that I've been trying to affect these types of things, and that I would recommend other people do, is starting closer to home, starting more locally. The one thing is, these bigger organizations and companies do not understand your landscape locally. They don't understand what you deal with, how and where, what type of environments you fly, what you have to do to go out and fly. Do you have locations to fly that are AMA sanctions or something like that? Is there just, what is it that's different to you? Is there somebody locally or location locally that you could possibly start spinning up into something that is somewhere you can fly later? I don't know. But basically, the first thing you should do is read for yourself. Go download the NPRM, read it. It's 500 pages. If you're not going to read 500 pages, to save something that you think is super important to you, well, I don't know what to tell you from there. I would highly suggest reading the entire 500-page document. Um, that's number one. Think about it. Take time. Like, don't just read it, and as you read it, start making comments publicly or go comment on it, or form your opinions and start blasting them out. Read the whole thing. Think about it. Talk about it maybe with some local friends or some buddies or even people that aren't even into the space, just to bounce the stuff off of them and see what it is. And that comes back to something else. Locally and within your own community, talk about these things with the right people. Find people that are looking to take robotics to the next level, like competitive robotics, whether it's airborne, seaborne, on the ground, programming, coding, it doesn't matter. They're all tied together. And if drones are going to need a safe space, well, there's all kinds of safe spaces for robotics that are also starting to be spun up. Locally, I'm working with somebody that's trying to form up a major in state ran and owned or managed facility for competitive robotics, and we're talking about using the space for drones. So that's one way that I'm looking towards locally, working towards a space for the future. If all else fails, I hopefully will have a robotics center that we can go to and go fly at. So that's just one way. Comment on the NPRM, comment on it, make your public comments, but make them count. Take each individual area that you think you have an opinion about and write a comment about it and make that comment public and post it, and come back and then comment on another issue or another part of it that you may have issue or have a resolution to. And that brings me to the other part. Don't complain. Don't say, this is wrong, this is so bad, oh my gosh, this is taking away my freedoms and my liberties. Don't do that. I mean, sure, if you want to say that, sure, but you better back it up with some really awesome solutions. Something that is a great idea for a new way of an approach to the same end game that they're looking for, which is, man, if you're going to be flying, you're going to have to be able to be noticed, and you're also going to have to probably be able to be authenticated and denied from an area, possibly. So, yes, geofencing and saying, hey, you gotten too close to this facility, you're not, an invisible barrier of sorts. Yeah, it's going to happen. I don't know why anybody would really have any issues with, I mean, it's like a fence. I mean, it's just like the prison puts fences up and you're not supposed to go within a certain area of the prison, let alone fly a drone around it. So why are we worried about an invisible bubble that's just going to tell our drone to either land or go back home, anyways. So yeah, find solutions. Give reasonable and smart solutions to the problems they're trying to solve. If you have an issue with the way that they're trying to solve it. And then, lastly, find the companies and the organizations that you truly believe in and that you really stand behind. And I would reach directly out to the people that run those companies, run those organizations, and let them know you're in the fight with them. You're here to help, and tell them your perspective and your point of view and talk to them about it. And then from there, I mean, that's all we can do at this point. There's not really any more than us shaping the direction of this. And I will say that I think a lot of this can be shaped and changed if people just get off their butts and do the work. It comes down to, how do I start my own business and run my own business? Get off your butt and do it. So go read the NPRM, make some choices about how you feel about it and what you think is right, what you think is wrong, and make some comments. I don't think arguing amongst each other and these community organizations, going on different routes is really going to prove to be that great. I think in the end, and this is the part where everybody's going to hate probably what I say, I have not been ever open. I have never not been open about my thoughts on this. I believe hobbyists are going to take a huge backseat to just the evolution of the robotic world. It's not about commercial versus hobbyist. It's about, again, the technology is here. We need to employ it. We need to deploy it. Actually, we need to put it to work. And so, in order to do that, there's going to need to be some compromises. And as silly as it sounds, it's not a free. It's not taking away our freedoms. It's just saying, hey, you can't do that again. Like, you can't go build a car, with bubble gum and duct tape in your garage and go drive it on the freeway. We're gonna pull you over. We're gonna take it off the road, and if you keep doing it, we're gonna put you in jail. I mean, I don't know any other easier, safer, smarter way to put it than I love these toys. I love playing with them, but man, I love what it looks like in the future with these things doing different jobs around us. And to me, that I'll give the entire hobby up for that, straight up, because I much rather play with toys, developing hardware and software and new solutions. Sure, I want to be able to go play with them and fly them in my backyard. I just may not be able to go dive bomb downtown, which technically I don't do anyways anymore. So, anywho, that's it. 20 minutes. 9 or 10 people were watching. I really appreciate it. I see all your comments. I'm going to go through them in a minute. I really just wanted to kind of get this out. It's something I've been wanting to talk about, and I haven't really known how. And people have called me out for, hey, what have you done? What are you going to do? So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to continue to work with Robotters here in town, and we're going to find a space to provide competitive robotics here locally. We're going to continue to work. I'm the VP of my AMA field. I'm going to continue to work with the Round Rock City and Old Settlers Park to try to redevelop even further our park that we've already just recently had redeveloped, and talk to them about the future and let them know that they have a vested interest in providing a much better location for people to fly now. And who knows, maybe we can get our park out here in Old Settlers built out to have some indoor outdoor stuff. I don't know, but I'm going to try. I'm going to continue to push what I think is right and good, and push for it in my own way. But I'm not going to push that on anyone else. I'm just going to present it, do what I can to make it happen. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. In the end, we're going to have to comply one way or the other. So we'll talk more later. Thanks again. Peace.